It's official. Starship flight plan revealed. They want to land the ship? Surprising Flight 3 issues revealed. Why did the booster really fail? Rocket Lab launches another mission for NASA. Vast shows off the first prototype of its commercial space station. My name is Felix. Welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. We are getting close. As always with Starship flights, SpaceX is revealing more details about the next launch every day. Flight 4 seemed underwhelming at first, but we have a massive plot twist, possibly the biggest one yet. Want to know more? Follow me. We're just a little over a week away from another launch of Starship. My travel accommodations are made. It is happening. Here at Starbase, you can definitely feel and see the excitement. This time, the biggest rocket in the world will have to prove that maneuvers required for full reusability are indeed possible and not just in a high-altitude flight test. Before it does though, however, and before I show you what exactly will be different, there are still some tasks left to complete. Last week, we witnessed what initially appeared to be a full wet dress rehearsal, a launch simulation without Raptor ignition. Following that test, the upper stage, Ship 29, was destacked in preparation for a rollback that ultimately didn't happen. Perhaps SpaceX received some good news from the FAA, or they concluded that shuffling all the prototypes at the build site would take too much time. Either way, workers began stripping some of the prototype's tiles right at the launch site. Seeing them replace the tiles just days before the scheduled liftoff shows how much SpaceX wants this to be the first ship to make it through re-entry. Doing whatever is possible before the launch and using every option available will increase its odds. Back in the days of the Space Shuttle, replacing a single tile was a process that could take up to a month. The ability to swap them in mere minutes on Starship is a real game changer. Now they only need to stay where they are during liftoff. After a few days of work on May 26th, Ship 29 was once again positioned between the arms of Mechazilla, and later it was restacked. Since the flight termination charges and the S-29 decals weren't installed, this likely wasn't the last time this Starship was stacked. You may remember that in the last episode we put on our tinfoil hats to speculate that perhaps the seemingly successful wet dress rehearsal wasn't so successful after all. We had two pieces of evidence suggesting this might be the case. First, pictures shared by SpaceX showed a booster that was almost fully loaded, but still missing a single ring of propellant. Hard to spot, but important. Secondly, Cameron County posted another non-flight road closure which would perfectly accommodate a second WDR. With the prototype restacked without receiving the final touches required for launch, we are now fairly convinced that we'll see another WDR or at least a smaller tanking test. This test is likely to occur on May 28th between 5 AM and 5 PM local time. Since this is the day this video was released, take a look at our 24/7 Starbase livestream. A link is in the description. You might just see a frosty Starship after finishing this episode. Once that test is completed and the teams determine it was successful, Ship 29 will be destacked once more to receive the flight termination charges. Initially, there was a lot of evidence suggesting that the launch would happen between June 1st and 3rd, but since then, SpaceX has revealed the official no earlier than, or NET, estimate. The fourth Starship won't launch until June 5th, pending regulatory approval. And with the official date revealed, Elon Musk's company went into full rapid-fire mode regarding information about this and the previous flight. Some of what I'm going to tell you now is indeed very surprising. If this works, we're in for an even crazier show than last time, again. Let's start with the plan for the next launch, which turns out to be quite exciting. Comparing the mission profile with Flight 3, changes can be seen all over the place even before Starship leaves the ground. With the experience gained from the previous launch, SpaceX has been able to fine-tune the Starship fueling process. As such, tanking will begin even later into the countdown than previously. We explained the reason why in the last episode. Take a look after finishing this one, it'll be linked in the end card. Methane will now flow into the ship's tank 2 minutes later, and liquid oxygen will start pouring 6 minutes later. For the booster, the timings are 1 and 5 minutes later, respectively. Interestingly, according to the provided timeline, in both cases, fuel will flow first, not the oxidizer, which is different from what we saw during Flight 3. Speeding up the propellant load by a few minutes might not seem like a big deal, but this can save thousands of dollars in fuel that doesn't need to be vented. Not to mention it helps prevent the formation of potential ice crystals inside the ship. As the prototype is being filled with fuel, the Raptor chill procedure will begin exactly at the same time as it did during Flight 3. This is a crucial part of pre-flight preparation, where a small amount of liquid oxygen flows through the engines, gradually cooling them down. This prevents the formation of gas bubbles and reduces the risk of parts cracking due to thermal shock. The next change to this timeline item will very likely happen with the introduction of the next Raptor engine version. Not much will happen during the next few minutes until about 3 minutes before launch, when the propellant reaches its maximum level. The rest of the pre-flight events follow the same pattern seen in previous missions. Hopefully during Mission 4, SpaceX will delay the pad avoidance maneuver. You see, Starship lifts off at a slight angle to avoid crashing into the launch tower. This tilt is on purpose. However, this seems to cause several problems after launch, including damage to the launch mount and the chopsticks. The engines fire at an angle and not clean through the middle of the OLM. Delaying this maneuver by 2 or 3 seconds could significantly reduce the need for refurbishment at the launch site. That is, unless it causes the rocket to crash into the tower, which we're not hoping for, even though it would look epic. Nope, we're not. Maybe a little. Once Starship clears the tower, it will encounter Max Q, the point where the rocket experiences the maximum mechanical stress. Interestingly, this will occur a full 10 seconds later than during Mission 3. While this initially suggests lower thrust, the most engines cut-off event will happen at almost the same time as before. This could imply one of two things. The upper stage will separate at a lower altitude, or the super heavy thrust profile has changed, starting at a lower thrust and then increasing significantly after Max Q. I do think that this one is more likely. Following MECO, we'll see hot staging and the boost back burn startup. Now, the boost back maneuver involves the super heavy flipping around and then firing its engines to reach the landing spot, a technique first achieved with Falcon 9 and now being adapted for Starship. If the burn goes as planned, it will bring the super heavy to just 30 kilometers or 19 miles away from Starbase. Just 2 seconds after the boost back is completed, we'll witness an entirely new event: hot stage jettison. This means they'll drop the ring that connected the booster with the upper stage, and we'll talk about the reason for this move later in this video. A few minutes later, the booster will enter the final phase of its flight, which is the landing burn. For this mission, it will occur earlier to allow SpaceX more time to shave off all that velocity. The Super Heavy also won't be landing on a real tower yet. Instead, it will perform a soft landing in the ocean, referred to as a virtual tower. I wouldn't be surprised if during this time we will see some activity back at the launch site. According to Elon Musk, SpaceX aims to catch the booster as early as Flight 5, so it would be logical to test Mechazilla just minutes after liftoff, as this hasn't been done before. In an ideal scenario, SpaceX could feed data from the booster directly into Mechazilla to see if it could handle such a landing. Fully virtual test on both the booster and the real tower. Why not do both? What do you think? Will we see some chopstick action during Flight 4? Place your bets in the comments. Meanwhile, in the air, Ship 29 will continue its ascent until 8 minutes and 23 seconds, which happens to place the engine shutdown 13 seconds earlier than during Flight 3. Slightly less. It will then enter the coast phase, during which we won't see much action, but likely again extremely stunning live footage of the next Starship in space. SpaceX will likely use this time to test the upgraded attitude control thrusters of the prototype. However, there won't be any major tests like propellant transfer demo, the payload bay test, or the Raptor engine relight. The propellant demo was a success and needed to be done just once for NASA, and the engine relight and the payload bay door test are skipped for now. This phase will last almost 40 minutes, after which the prototype will begin atmospheric re-entry. Yeah! Elon Musk has previously stated that the goal of this flight is to survive peak re-entry heat, and now we understand why this is so important. Assuming the ship survives and slows down to subsonic speeds, it will then perform a landing flip followed by the landing burn. Yep, you heard me right. This maneuver, which we have seen in high altitude flights before, will now be attempted after returning from space, not just after going up 10 kilometers or 6 miles. It is surprising to see SpaceX attempt this maneuver so early, but there is a possible explanation. Currently, the FAA is determining whether SpaceX can receive a modified launch license without needing to submit a full mishap investigation report. During Flight 3, they weren't even planning a landing burn, because if Starship somehow survived re-entry and failed to perform the burn, the investigation to pinpoint the exact reason would likely take a very long time. After all, analyzing data from minutes of plasma re-entry wouldn't be easy. Now that they might not need to finish the analysis before the next flight, they can attempt a landing burn without worrying about significantly delaying Flight 5. This is why I mentioned waiting for the official flight profile. Initially, it seemed that this flight would be less exciting than Flight 3, as it was missing elements like Raptor ignition. But now that we know that the ship can perform a landing burn, the coast phase and re-entry will be even more intense. That's the plan for Flight 4, but SpaceX also released a deep dive into what happened during Flight 3 and how they intend to prevent similar issues during the next launch. However, before I show you that, I have a big announcement to make. I'll be in town for Flight 4. We'll have a party. It's a bit of a tradition already, and I've done this before, but this time you can grab a spot and be part of it. Head over to raptorroost.com with one R in the middle and fill out the waiver. The party is on launch day and after the launch, which I'll watch and hopefully stream at Raptor Roost as well. Spots are limited though and filling up fast. In fact, we're almost full for both the launch and the party. The party starts as soon as the roads open again, raptorroost.com. Now, before we continue with Starship news, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you have hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, including satellite, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress and countless other extras on top. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Okay, now here's the next crazy surprise. Let's revisit Flight 3, shall we? While the mishap investigation is still ongoing, SpaceX already has an idea of what went wrong during this mission. Everything with the booster was going pretty well until the boost back phase. At this point, 13 out of 33 Raptors were supposed to change the course of Booster 10 to splash down just 30 kilometers or 19 miles away from Starbase in the Gulf of Mexico. During this maneuver, there is a moment where 6 engines shut down. Initially, it was theorized that this might have helped guide the booster to the correct spot, but SpaceX confirmed that this shutdown wasn't planned at all. To protect the prototype, once these engines failed, the boost back was ended prematurely and these 6 engines were disabled. Consequently, the booster's landing spot shifted to about 100 kilometers or 62 miles offshore. As the prototype was preparing for a soft water landing, SpaceX decided to fire only the remaining 7 working engines instead of the required 13. Even then, only 2 of them actually ignited, and finally at 462 meters or 1,500 feet above the Gulf of Mexico, the booster exploded. According to SpaceX, the issue during boost back and landing burns were once again caused by filter blockages in the oxygen tank. This was already a problem during Flight 2. Essentially, when something too big blocks the filter, it causes the pressure at the LOX turbopump to drop, which results in a change in the fuel to oxidizer ratio. Rocket engines are such precise devices that even a slight disturbance in this ratio can cause the engine to melt and explode, which is likely what happened during the landing. Unfortunately, it is unclear what exactly blocked those filters. The force of the flight could tear apart components like the slosh baffles, or perhaps the filters were blocked due to ice formation. I'm not saying it was the aliens. Either way, SpaceX has apparently found a solution for this problem and implemented it into Booster 11, so hopefully it will survive this time. However, there is still one more thing regarding the Super Heavy we need to discuss. With Flight 4, SpaceX plans to drop the hot staging ring after separation, but why would they do that? It doesn't seem like full reusability, right? There are likely 2 reasons for this decision. First, there is the obvious reason: mass savings. According to the FAA's re-evaluation of the impact of Starship launches from Starbase, the ring itself weighs about 9 tons or 20,000 pounds. Given the booster's dry mass of 200 tons or 400,000 pounds, the ring's mass isn't completely insignificant. Super Heavy Block 1 wasn't designed with hot staging in mind, and its landing tanks likely can't accommodate this additional weight. Therefore, the booster might not even be able to return to the launch site with the ring attached. The other, more complex reason stems from a theory that during Flight 3, the ring actually detached from the booster, which wasn't planned. The idea is that the ring got damaged during hot staging, and then during descent, aerodynamic forces ripped it from the top of the prototype. This threw off the avionics controller, which was tuned with the ring attached, resulting in the strange oscillations seen in the last seconds of Booster 10's flight. For now, this is just speculation and hasn't been confirmed by SpaceX, but it's possible that even if they recover a Block 1 booster, they will do so without the hot staging ring. SpaceX also confirmed the reason for the issues with the ship, which was rather obvious from the start. All the problems stemmed from clogging in valves responsible for roll, which resulted in loss of attitude control, cancellation of the in-space burn, and tumbling during re-entry. The solution was to add more roll vents, which we've already seen installed on Ship 29, and the addition of anti-clogging hardware in those vents. If all goes according to plan, we'll be able to judge if these changes help Starship survive re-entry and landing in about a week from now. What do you think? Will it be a 100% success this time? Place your bets in the comments. I am eager to read your thoughts. Okay, enough Starship for today. Let's now take a quick look at the second most launched US rocket, the Electron. Despite delays from the payload provider, Peter Beck's company is going strong, and it aims to beat its 2023 launch record of 10 missions. As we approach June, they've already completed 6 launches. The latest one was once again dedicated to NASA. Prefire is a tiny CubeSat that aims to fill a significant gap in our knowledge about our planet. This spacecraft can monitor the amount of Earth's heat that escapes to space, particularly around the Arctic and Antarctic regions, using a thermal infrared spectrometer. What's interesting about this mission is that NASA actually needs 2 such satellites on different orbital planes to make accurate observations. As such, once the Electron lifted off with the first pre-fire on May 25th, the clock started ticking. To synchronize the 2 satellites, the second pre-fire has to be launched within 3 weeks of the first one. This means that Rocket Lab has to put it into orbit before the second half of June. Fingers crossed that they'll be able to pull it off. Lastly, we have a truly fascinating update from a company working on potentially the first commercial space station, VAST. Their Haven 1 station is being designed with SpaceX's ecosystem in mind. It will not only be launched by SpaceX, but will also use Dragon as the main transport to and from the station. They also announced in April that the station would receive a Starlink upgrade, which would allow for fast internet access in space. Then in May they showed off a solar wing, 4 of which will provide power to Haven 1. Recently they proved that their station is more than just renders and concepts. Take a look at this. The company has already completed the station's structure pathfinder. It's a massive aluminum structure that allows them to test all the fabrication processes as well as different geometries that will be used to build the actual station. Its shape significantly differs from what the renders showed, but it's unclear whether that's the final design. With this crucial step completed, they will now move on to building a similar test article, but this time dedicated to pressure and load testing. If all goes according to plan, the station will be launched in August 2025 atop a Falcon 9. However, as always in the space industry, expect some delays. Today I want to show you something extraordinary. This is the work of An Zhuang, the mastermind behind morethan3d.com. A Rolls-Royce jet engineer during the day and one of the best 3D print magicians in the space community at night. He's been sending me models for years now. Many of the props on my set are from him. And now he has something new that he'd like to promote. If you're looking for absolutely fantastic 1:200 scale ship models that you can even take apart, including glowing plumes or any other props you just saw, go to morethan3d.com. And Anne is even throwing something on top for you. If you have a 3D printer and don't want to order the ready-to-assemble models, use the code FELIX10 at checkout to get 10% off the STL files of either the ship or the booster to print them yourself at home. I mean, look at these. Thank you, Anne. The Y team and the space community greatly appreciate what you do for all of us. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. It is what fuels the algorithm and it helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next episode. In the end crard. Ice crystals inside the ship. This tilt is on purpose. God, I love the word, but my blood sugar is kind of going low right now, so.